Memory can be a strange thing. You can go along for years having forgotten something, and then out of nowhere, it pops back into your mind. That happened to me recently when I suddenly remembered Mom's good old meat and potato pie. All it is some ground beef with flavorings topped with some mashed potatoes. Quick and easy to make, it freezes well, it's delicious. What more could you want? So I decided to find a recipe online and make some up for myself, and that's when things went horribly wrong. What I discovered is that most people associate meat and potato pie with something called shepherd's pie. If you look up a recipe for shepherd's pie, what you get is something loaded with lots of carrots and celery, all sorts of vegetables. And you know, that's fine, but most men agree that vegetables aren't really supposed to be eaten. They're put on the plate as a garnish to make it look good, to be ignored or fed to the dog as circumstances might permit. They certainly do not belong in meat and potato pie. If they did, it'd be called meat, potato, and vegetable pie. So I decided to recreate Mom's good old meat and potato pie and present it in a video for anyone else who wanted a taste of the real thing. Here's how I make it. Start by bringing 2.5 cups of water, 1/4 cup of margarine. I like the Land O'Lakes Fresh Buttery Taste brand. I think this tastes actually better than butter. And 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Vary the salt to your own particular tastes, and then add 1.5 cups of pre-made potato buds. Be ready. It foams up quite quickly. Now the 2.5 cups of water is actually less than what the recipe calls for. I find it's much easier to add water to the mixture to make it as thick as I want, rather than trying to boil the water off if I've added too much. That looks a little thick. We'll add about 1/4 cup to this. That's better. Now, just cover, and let's move on to the meat. Take 2 pounds of 93% ground beef. Now, the reason I'm using the very leanest ground beef is not because I want to be healthy. It's because if you use anything with more fat in it, after you make the pie, the fat will settle out as a layer of grease on the bottom of a pan. It doesn't look good and it doesn't taste particularly good. We'll be adding a lot of flavoring to this, so don't worry about the low fat compromising the taste. Don't start using a wooden spurtle and breaking the meat up right away when you put it in the pan. If you do, what happens is you won't get browning on the meat. It'll just turn this sort of insipid tan color. Let the meat rest as a single large patty for 2 or 3 minutes once you've got your pan hot, and you'll get some honest browning on the bottom, and it'll taste much better. Okay, the meat's been turned, and you can see we're getting some nice browning on it. Watch your timing. You don't want this black. Char is bitter. That'll throw the taste off, but a nice golden brown is what you're looking for. We'll let it cook like this to brown the other side for about 2 minutes, and start adding our flavorings and breaking it up. Okay, for 2 pounds of meat, you want to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Again, this is a matter of personal preference. And I also like adding 1/2 teaspoon of granulated onion powder. Now that the bottom is browned, it's looking good, start breaking it up and continue this until the meat is thoroughly browned and broken up into fine granules. Okay, at this point it looks done, but I continue cooking for another 2 or 3 minutes. The reason is breaking the meat up releases a lot of water, and that's what prevents the browning. So I cook this pretty dry. We'll be adding gravy to it later, so it won't come out dry. Okay, believe it or not, we're almost done. What I do next is I add 3/4 cup of beef gravy. I like the Heinz Homestyle Savory Beef. This has the strongest beef flavor and not a lot of herbiness. I'm looking for meat, not vegetable flavor. Also, add half a cup of the mashed potatoes. What the mashed potatoes are going to do is bind the meat together so that when you pick up a forkful, all the meat doesn't fall off onto your lap. Just mix this in and we'll be ready to assemble. Okay, for these quantities, I think an 8 by 8 inch pan, about 2 inches deep, works the best. I've taken the meat mixture and packed it down nice and level and tight to the bottom. That helps it hold together. And then rather than just scooping out all of the mashed potatoes in a big lump and then trying to smooth them, I like putting them in small dollops to help distribute them from the start. If you use a single big clump, what can happen is it can push into the meat mixture and you get uneven portions. So now just smooth it out. A lot of people like to take some of the mashed potatoes and put it in a piping bag and put little flowers and things on the surface. That can dress it up. But if you're a guy cooking, it makes it look a little prissy. One thing a lot of people do that I don't is after they get the potatoes on, they will brown the potatoes in the broiler. The problem with that is that many times it dries the potatoes out to the point where they're like potato jerky. It's really kind of a tough skin that's hard to get through. So I keep mine covered and I don't brown them. And I think it comes out with a much better texture. And that's pretty much it. Meat and potato pie, total assembly time, 10 minutes, no problems. And that's all it takes. Let's see how it came out. See how the mashed potatoes help hold the meat together? That's pretty good. Thank you, Mom.